Oh boy. Oh boy. Drag story time is back. Drag story time is back. So this is going to be hosted by Bob's Bay Books. Bob's Bay Book. I guess this is in Bloomington. Axelrod and Celexa Sharalike. I don't know. They're going to be reading a selection of picture books geared toward preschool and kindergarten age children, but we encourage all to join. Yes, this is an actual drag queen story hour that's happening right here in this community. This is not a drag show. This is story time for kiddos. Oh boy, seating's going to be available on the floor. Uh, Most of the seating will be available on the floor. There will be some folding chairs for parents. So parents are allowed to attend. And this is an actual drag show that's going to be taking place in Bloomington. And right there in the description, it says that they are gearing the picture books toward preschool kids and kindergarten age children. Look, it's deeply inappropriate. Just go to the Instagram pages of these drag queens that are going to be hosted by this bookstore in Bloomington. If you go to the Instagram pages, it's deeply disturbing. I've got one right here. The drag queen has got a big toy lollipop. He has placed it in between his legs, and the caption is quote, "Lick my lollipop?" question mark. Yeah, this is just deeply I'm deeply disturbed that these drag queens will be reading to children, Bloomington children, and that there's actual parents who will be taking them to this event, and it's a disturbing thing. It really is. And if you go to their Instagram pages, I mean, you can see there's um one. I mean, I've got the one uh, picture up here. This is the drag queen Celexa. She's got a bullet hole in her head. It's dripping with blood. And she says, "My husband told me one more time that he'd shoot me. Little did he know he can't kill a witch." And she's got, I mean, he's got so much. He's got so much. It's just insanity to me. There's one photo that is truly disturbing on his Instagram, and I don't get it. People say that it's art. I don't see it as art. A lot of it is provocative dancing. A lot of it is wearing G-strings and provocative clothing, and some of it is even very graphic violence. For example, the one picture that I've got here. Oh, I think he actually deleted it off his Instagram page. But we shared this picture out. There's a noose around his neck. He's used a lot of dramatic makeup to show that he died of asphyxiation, I believe, from the noose hanging around his neck, and he published that on his Instagram page. Do you really think that that's appropriate for children? Do you think children should be around somebody who participates in that sort of art? So-called art? No, I don't think so. So that's happening this weekend. Kids are going to be exposed to very disturbed individuals, obviously, based off of their Instagram posts. And if you don't believe me, just go look at them. Okay. So I will be getting into a whole lot this morning. You guys can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I do want to talk about these university presidents, these elite university presidents. They refuse to denounce the students, or the students who are actually calling for the genocide of the Jewish people. And their response is they're going to leave you speechless. So I am going to get into that. Then the White House interns, being cowards, they wrote Joe Biden and they asked Joe Biden for a ceasefire. They wrote a letter, but they didn't sign the letter. That's what's funny. They signed it anonymously, of course, because they don't have the cojones to stand behind their calls for a ceasefire. They don't want Israel to defend themselves against these animals who are raping women, who are putting babies into ovens, who are beheading children and beheading women. So yeah, they're not signing the letter. They signed it anonymously, of course, because they're cowards. And a little bit later, I'm going to be talking about this viral rage. It's all the rage on the interwebs. It's called DINKs. DINKs stands for dual income, no kids. And truly, these are the most saddest people I've ever seen in my life. And I think it's a dumb trend. So I'm going to be chatting a little bit about that. Taylor Swift is also shilling for Joe Biden. The Swifties are going to be They're going to be enabled and they're going to be ballot harvesting for Joe Biden at the behest of Taylor Swift. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that as well this morning. So in 2019, like I said, Kyle Kashuv, you can go look up his story. But basically, his acceptance to Harvard was rescinded, and they took away his acceptance because people dug up some offensive text messages. The text messages contained the N word. And he wrote these text messages when he was a preteen. And they dug up some old messages from a long time ago, and they rescinded his acceptance to Harvard back in 2019. And then in 2021, MIT, they actually dismissed this pastor. He actually said something factual about George Floyd. And it's so sad. It's so sad that they dismissed this pastor from MIT back in 2021. And that's the truth, folks. That's what MIT did back in 2021. He literally said something factual about George Floyd, that he pointed a gun at a woman who was pregnant and that he died of a fentanyl overdose, according to the autopsy. And also in 2021, Penn, they threatened students who would speak out against Will Thomas for deciding that he was a woman and that he was going to compete against women just as a man, and he did this name change, and the Penn threatened students that they were going to be uh, canceled, they were going to be dismissed from Penn if they were to speak out against Will Thomas competing against them as a woman. Clearly, that's unfair. He has the physical advantage over the women in in swimming. So one of the things that I just thought that it was, I mean, it was absurd. It was this question. It was a super easy question that the presidents of the universities were asked. They were called before a congressional hearing to address the rampant anti-Semitism that's been going on college campuses. Another thing of all these schools have in common, by the way, is that many, along with many other universities and progressive cities in America, is that there has been rampant anti-Semitism going on since October 7th, the terrorist attack, the Festival of Tabernacles. It was a very deliberate day. They chose that day for a reason, because it was a festival for the Jewish people. And they, on October 7th, that's when all of these universities, these schools, these progressive cities started to uh, display rampant anti-Semitism. And the attack, and right after the attack, the day after, we saw Harvard students simping for Hamas. They were sitting there and they were pro Hamas, pro Palestine, whatever. It's the same thing. And all of these schools have code of conducts. That's what I want to get to today, is that they have code of conducts where they control speech, that if that the speech is being used against certain groups of people. Okay, the people at the top 10 of the left's most marginalized rankings. Okay, they've got a list. If you're gay, if you're lesbian, if you're black, if you're Asian doesn't fall into that top 10. Okay, if you're trans, if you're LGBT, or if you're non-binary, I don't know. But they are against speech if it's used against certain types of people. So, like I said, there was a congressional hearing, and this is the easiest question I think that anybody would ever get in their lifetime. It's, quote, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate your university's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? The answers, well, it depends. It depends, kind of, maybe. If you call for the genocide of Jews, it just kind of depends on the context. That's what their answers were here during this congressional hearing. I'm going to play a bit of this for you. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Rules regarding bullying and harassment, yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules.
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
Yes
speech
or no?
becomes if the speech becomes conduct,
Oh, gosh, this is just miserable. So the schools would only take action if the speech leads to conduct. So at, say, Harvard, you can call for the genocide of Jews just as long as you don't actually harm someone, physically harm someone. You can say Jews need to be genocide, but genociding them yourself is just a bridge too far. That's what these elite university presidents are saying. It also depends how you define genocide. You can't get expelled if you call someone, or you can totally get expelled if you call someone the wrong pronoun. If you use the wrong pronoun, because that's causing harm, and that's engaging in what's called trans genocide, which isn't genocide as much as a left-wing catchphrase. Not unlike paper genocide if you allow porn in school libraries. That's what they call it, if you don't want porn in school libraries, if you don't want pornography in public libraries in the kids section, believe me, I saw it right here in the Bloomington Library. Oh, but that's paper genocide, Kat, if you don't want the porn in the school libraries. If you don't call someone the right pronoun, you're engaging in trans genocide. It's not trans genocide, okay? If I refuse to bend the knee and live this lie with you, I love you enough to not lie to you, my friend. The context of causing Jewish students to be afraid to leave their dorm rooms or even attempt to go to campus out of fears of having these future, and that's what these Harvard students are. They're future congressional Democrat staffers. They're screaming intifada. They're screaming from the river to the sea in their faces. This falls under free speech, according to the elite universities that don't really believe in free speech in almost any other circumstance. I just laid it out for you. Kyle Kashuv. His acceptance to Harvard was rescinded. They took it away because of an old text message that had the N-word in it. And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm not saying that's okay at all. However, they dug up an old text message and then they took away his acceptance. These people are calling for the Jews right now, calling for the genocide of Jews right now, and they're doing nothing about it. They don't believe in free speech. This is where we're at now. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, you've probably seen it on the interwebs, DINKs. They are the latest viral rage. That actually stands for DINKs, D-I-N-K-S. It stands for dual income, no kids. And to be honest, I would just call them sad losers, but to each their own, I guess. They're not DINKs, they're just sad losers. All right, I'm back next. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it, and so sorry. I'm dealing with the static when it's dry in here. I gotta try to spray the floor, and if you hear some silences on the radio today, it's just because I touched the microphone and it shocks me, and then it shuts off my little thing, my little computer. So that's the beauty of radio. You never know what's gonna happen, so I gotta be careful not to just the microphone because I am full of static. It's very dry outside. It's gonna be pretty cold this morning. But good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Real quick, I did want to bring this to your attention. There was supposed to be a planning commission meeting tonight, a normal planning commission meeting. We talked a lot with Mike Brown yesterday, and I have no idea. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but Young America, I believe they requested to move this meeting. So, what was going to be talked about at this meeting? Well, Young America, they entered into a contract with Don Frankie to buy this property that's adjacent to Collie Ridge subdivision. Now, there's a petition out there. I actually signed the petition. I used to live in North Normal. I signed it at the time. I got the heck out of Normal, don't live here anymore. But the Collie Ridge subdivision here, this property that's adjacent to it, it's on the northeast corner of Beach and Shelbourne, and this land is currently zoned single family residential. Now, they're attempting to rezone that, and this is a tale as old as time. They're trying to rezone everything, make it multifamily developments. They're building up, not out, and they are participating in smart cities. It's a smart cities global initiative plan, and basically, what smart cities are, it's where you can go anywhere within 15 minutes or 5 minutes of where you live, and you will own nothing and you will be happy. This is actually a World Economic Forum global initiative. Look it up. The town of Normal actually adopted this plan. Uh, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just, I mean, here it is. The Normal Planning Commissioner, according to some of the neighbors in that area, she informed them that the commission intends to support this request. And she also stated that the development should be approved because, quote, it aligns with the Normal's comprehensive plan. Maybe it doesn't align with your plan. Maybe it doesn't align with the community's plan. The plan to have more single family, like, shouldn't we be encouraging people to own their own house? This way, you just dump a bunch of money into renting. I'm talking, $1,200 for rent, something outrageous like that. Maybe the cheapest, you're looking at $900 for a shoebox to live in. How depressing. They want you, they want you to own nothing, and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's what the World Economic Forum's whole shtick is. So, anyway, the Planning Commission, I guess they're not meeting. I was informed, Mike Brown last night, he told me, he's a resident. He was informed that there is no longer going to be a meeting, and I think that they're going to be changing that meeting to January 4th. I believe it was at the request of Young America. I have no idea. Maybe, just maybe, it's because there's a covenant out there, and the land use covenant says that, hey, this is going to be single family residential zoning. What's the point of zoning if people can just go in and change it at any time? Right. So there's a lot of concerns that they have. There's concerns about Young America, just as the property owners, because they currently have a 1.5 out of 5 rating. That's factual. We talked with Kaylee and Mike yesterday. They talked about how, you know, I think the rating speaks for itself, and how can we really trust that they're going to maintain these properties? They were concerned about traffic and parking, specifically the parking, because Young America has stated that they have to provide 2 parking spaces per unit. This is a 228 unit project that they're proposing here. They want to rezone it to put some more multifamily housing there. And that's going to be a minimum of 456 parking spots. Now, they plan to provide 457 parking spots. Young America, do they really think that renters are not going to have people coming over, friends, family, to come visit, to party? Who knows? And there's no street parking on Beach or Shelbourne. So this is a huge concern. Where is the overflow parking going to end up? So there's all kinds of concerns. There was a public hearing that was going to happen, this meeting, December 7th. I don't think that it's going to be happening today. So I believe it's happening on January 4th. I got to double check that. But Mike Brown, he texted me last night. He says, "Hey, I think that the meeting is canceled." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's kind of interesting." But we are going to be digging into quite a lot this morning. I do want to chat. I've got to take a break. I want to chat about this DINK thing. It's like this latest viral rage. All the kids are talking about it. It stands for dual income, no kids. This is, again, you'll own nothing. You'll be happy. You will have no family. So smile. I think that these people are sad losers. But I've got to take a quick break. You're listening to Cities 92.9 on the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can always text me at 309-451-9299, and we've got a lot to chat about when we come back for the 7 o'clock hour. DINKs, I guess, are a thing. DINKs, do you know what those are? It's the viral rage right now. And then we're going to be chatting a little bit about how the Biden White House staffers are demanding Joe Biden call for a ceasefire in Israel. So they don't want Israel to defend themselves against these animals, Hamas. So we're going to come back. Find me live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We will also recap the RNC debate. It was the last one last night. You're listening to Kat Peterson. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. When we come back, we are going to be talking about Vivek Ramaswamy. He went after Chris Christie, actually told a fat joke right to Chris Christie's face. That's pretty funny. Ouch. Ramaswamy, he's got this amazing skill, and here's what his skill is: truth nukes. He has the best debate skill. That's Vivek. He actually possesses this ability to make people uncomfortable by just simply telling the truth. And I think that is a great skill to have. He completely won that debate last night. Nikki Haley's political career is over, and it was a challenge that Vivek had for her. He challenged her to name 3 provinces. I can't name them. I don't know. In eastern Ukraine, and she couldn't. She couldn't even name 3 provinces. And look, I am not a congresswoman, and I don't care about that the Ukraine. And you're like, oh, Cad. Well, Ukraine has completely lost real democracy. They're not a real democracy. They're not even having presidential elections anymore. They canceled them, which I think is coming here to the United States. But they're also persecuting Christians. Their ambassador is a self-proclaimed witch, Satanist, who invites Hillary campaign staffers and Democrats to spirit cookings here in the US of A. So, I mean, there you have it. I don't think I really need to make my case. If you're watching, smash the like button. We're back in just a minute. We are going to go ahead and run through this RNC debate. Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm liking him more and more, folks. He went after Chris Christie, and he shut down Chris Christie. Chris Christie tried to barge in, interrupt, and Vivek Ramaswamy kind of pulled off this risky move where he just barges right through, and he says, "You know what? No, shut up." He shuts down Christie. Let's take a listen to it here on the Morning Buzz. I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
He also doesn't know what provinces in eastern Ukraine he actually wants us to fight for. Chris, your version of foreign policy experience was closing a bridge from New Jersey to New York.
Yeah.
So do everybody a favor, just walk yourself off that stage, enjoy a nice meal, and get the hell out of this race. When it comes to Nikki, I think if you're going to actually send your sons and daughters to go die in somebody else's war, you better, excuse me, Chris, I'm speaking, and I'm not done yet.
I haven't heard the time when you aren't
and we're going to be
speaking.
done. So listen up to this, is if these people want to send your sons and daughters to go die in Ukraine, they've been arguing for it for a year. $200 billion of our taxpayer money sent over. Neither of them could even name for you the provinces that they actually want to protect. And this is the people who have been touting their so-called foreign policy experience. It is intellectual fraud. These people are lying to you, the same people who told you about weapons and mass destruction things.
Wow. Vivek Ramaswamy, he went after Chris Christie, even made a fat joke to Chris Christie's face. Ouch. Vivek Ramaswamy, he called out all three candidates up there, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie. Did anybody notice that Doug Burgum is gone? That happened, I think, last week, late last week. But Vivek Ramaswamy calling all three candidates out. And look, he has truth nukes. I call him truth nukes. And he said, look, you guys used Donald Trump for his money and for his endorsements. And J6 was an inside job. The 2020 election was stolen. The government lied about 9/11 and the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The replacement theory, the great replacement theory, it's not actually a theory. It's happening, folks, and it's not a conspiracy theory. Here's Vivek Ramaswamy. I want to run through this last clip, and then I promise we're going to get to DINKs. What the heck are those? And then I do want to talk about the White House interns demanding that Joe Biden call for a ceasefire in Israel. Let's take a listen to Vivek. He's got the truth nukes here. Here we go.
Same thing for Nikki Haley. A year ago. Same thing with Chris Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job, that the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11, that the great replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform, that the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech, that the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking him and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Governor Chris. Ooh. I love Vivek. I love Vivek. His best debate skill, folks, is that he possesses this ability to make people uncomfortable by simply telling the truth. And I love how he says Ukraine isn't a real democracy. They're persecuting Christians. They don't have elections anymore. They canceled their elections. And to make no mistake, I think that it's a petri dish for what is going to be happening here in 2024. I've said it from the beginning. I don't think that there's going to be a 2024 election because the New York Times, we've got The Atlantic, they're publishing headlines that say, do elections matter? So the exact moment where Vivek kind of ended Nikki Haley's political career there is when he challenged her and said, "Hey, name me 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine," and she couldn't. Game over. Game over. All right, I do want to get to this story. It's called DINKs. Have you heard this? Or maybe you've seen it on the interwebs, but DINKs is the latest viral trend. It's stands for dual income, no kids. I'd call them sad losers, but to each their own, I guess. They're not really dinks; they're sad losers, and it's going to be rough to get through this morning. Couples presumably married. We don't know if they're married, but they brag about how awesome their lives are without children. Children. And I don't have an issue with people deciding that they don't want kids. I really don't. But quite frankly, there's plenty of people who have kids who shouldn't have decided that they wanted kids. I get that. There are plenty of people who have kids and they shouldn't have had kids. But when you're marketing yourself with this acronym, DINK, for the sake of social media content, and you enter into this arena where it's fair play to point out what an absolute loser you are and what absolute losers you look like. So I'm watching this video and there's a couple. There's quite a lot of these videos. It's called Dink Lifestyle, and this is what your kids are watching on TikTok. So when little Timmy grows up and goes off to college and he says, Mom, I don't really want to have I don't want to give you grandchildren. I don't really want a family. This is where you can point to parents. You can say, well, this is what screwed up my kids' outlook on life. It's TikTok and social media that has made this sort of content go viral. So here's a couple bragging about their dink lifestyle on a Saturday morning. They woke up, they drank coffee, they went to the grocery store, they decorated the Christmas tree, and they did all the things families do, minus going to a kid's basketball game at night and enjoying their kids enjoying their kids discover who they are, discover themselves, discover what kind of hobbies they like, and to watch them laugh with their friends, children. You were a child. That's what makes me so mad about this dink lifestyle. It's like you hate kids that much, but you were a kid. Like, I'm a former fetus. I'm a former child. And the only difference is that this family drinks their coffee at home. And the dinks, they will brag on social media about how they can afford paying for $8 or paying $8 for a cup of coffee. Typically, if you have a family, if you've got kids running around, you drink coffee at home. My family, my mom and dad, it was like clockwork. They woke up, they got the Folgers out and they scooped their Folgers into, it was always my dad's job to make the coffee. And I always thought it was an amazing thing. I was like, oh, I want to be an adult one day. I started drinking coffee way too young. It was like 8 years old, but I just wanted to do it because dad did it. But look, the reason why they don't go out to Starbucks and pay $8 for one of their lattes is because parents, they don't have the income. They don't have the expendable income because they're paying for things like the basketball game. They're paying for things like their kids to go out to a movie with their friends and laugh. And these people are just losers who, much like this other couple, and I'm going to play this for you so you kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about here, what dinks are. But these losers, much like this couple that I'm going to play for you, I'm watching this one. This one doesn't make for great video or audio. It's great video visually. They go out and they track their day and they kind of put music behind it on this TikTok. And then this couple, they actually say what makes them dinks: grocery shopping, working out, golf, ordering appetizers. Look, this is all things that parents do well, only they don't brag about spending money on $8 lattes. Let's take a listen to this. This is what's going viral. This is what is exposed to your children on social media. And when they grow up, they say that, Mom, I really don't want to have a spouse. Mom, I really don't want to. Mom, I really like Taylor Swift. Why do you think? Why do you think your kids grow up and they start hating you? It's because they're told to hate you. They're told to hate family via social media and the public indoctrination camps that we call schools. Okay, so let's take a listen here to this dink viral. It's all the viral rage right now. Here we go.
We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're dinks. We can go to Florida on a whim.
We're dinks. We're already planning our European vacation next year.
Dinks. We get a full 8 hours of sleep and sometimes more.
We're dinks. We get desserts and appetizers at restaurants.
We're dinks. We can play with other kids and give them back.
We're dinks. We still do it 3 times a week.
We're dinks. We spend our discretionary income on $8 lattes.
We're dinks. We max out our 401ks, Roth IRAs, and HSAs.
We're dinks. We don't use our kids or dog as an excuse to leave a party. We just leave. We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and
I don't think it's funny. Some of what they say is true. Yeah, parents don't have the discretionary income to jet off to Europe whenever they feel like it on a whim. But it's in exchange, what they do get is spontaneous dance parties. You know, wrestling around, giggles. I loved going to father-daughter dances with my dad. I mean, mother-son events, Little League, Nerf wars. I got to hang out with my brother in those quiet times where you're all together, and that just can't be quantified. It just can't. So dinks, they have this awful morality about them because they deliberately don't have kids, and they're effectively demanding that other people's kids take care of them in their old age. Like, that's really messed up if you think about it. These dinks, you're not having kids, so you're gonna pay somebody else to somebody else's kids to take care of you in your old age? That's messed up. Also, more importantly, this content is it's just stupid. All right, I do have to shift gears. We are going to talk about Joe Biden. If it weren't for the fact that his policies, or the policies of the people propping him up at the White House here, they're systematically destroying our country, I'd be more inclined to feel bad for Joe Biden. But his policies suck, or at least the policies of the people who are propping him up as like some sort of puppet. I'd feel bad for Joe Biden. The man gets no respect, and this is clear because his staffers are demanding that he call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, and it's hilarious because this is a letter and it's signed anonymously, of course. These cowards, Biden's own staff, they write this letter and they won't even sign it. The man gets no respect. So I will be back here discussing that. Plus, I do want to kind of run through AOC. She often proves how stupid she is by saying stupid things. That's how she proves how stupid she is. She says stupid things, but she never disappoints in that regard, saying stupid things. So AOC, she's out there, and this is a new left-wing talking point, and she's warning that all women will face genital examinations if men are banned from competing in female sports. This is a really messed up roundabout argument to not wanting men in female spaces. So I'm gonna play her clip for you, and you will not believe it. I'm back next. This is The Buzz. Hi, folks. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. I'm going to get to a couple of your comments here. Here we go. Ryan McKinsey says her face was blank. She just started to stare into space when he challenged her. Yeah, it's quite sad. Mr. Ramaswamy had my vote from the first time he spoke. He answered yes and no with coherent sentences to all questions, like the laptop lie. He sees the truth. Yeah, so it's really simple. Was J6 an inside job? Yes. Was the election stolen? Yes. Is Hunter Biden's laptop real? Yes. Is Ukraine a democracy? No. Is Ukraine persecuting Christians? Yes. So the only reason why I won't vote for Ramaswamy, and forgive me, Henry, it's okay. I'm totally okay with you voting for Ramaswamy. The only reason why I will not vote for Ramaswamy is because I am a Christian conservative, and it's in that order. Okay, I'm a Christian conservative, and he's got to be Christian, and he's not. He's Hindu, and that's okay. I'm not I'm not against other religions. That's you can do what you. I don't believe it's the truth, but I am a Christian conservative, and I firmly believe that we should be putting Christians into office, especially in office of such high honor. They definitely need to be Christian. What we've got in the White House right now, he's not a Christian. He can sit there all day and say it till the cows come home. But if you believe in things like abortion, and if you aren't for a federal ban on abortion, then I have no interest in voting for you, really. Now, I don't even know if Donald Trump is for a federal ban. However, he has done the most for. I mean, he overturned Roe v. Wade with those Supreme Court justices with the U.S. Supreme Court. So he's done the most for babies. Um, Republicans, we fought for slavery to end in the 1800s. That was Abraham Lincoln. He signed the Emancipation Proclamation and gave human rights to Black people. Now we're fighting, Republicans are fighting for, or at least we should be, we're fighting for the rights of children, the human rights of children. They're humans and they deserve to live. I mean, they should live life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. First one is life. So you can't life, liberty. You can't have liberty without life, and you can't pursue happiness without life. So you got to have life, and you can't be denied life. Black people, they had life. They weren't denied. Well, a lot of in a lot of cases back in the 1800s, you were denied life. Um, but also you were denied the pursuit of happiness and liberty, right? So three core things. You need life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what's really dangerous, even with Taylor Swift, she's got this new ad out, and I might get to it here in this hour. What's really dangerous is that uh, we're telling young women that life doesn't matter. We're telling really humanity that life doesn't matter. And in society, we have such a disdain and even a hatred for life, such a just a disrespect for life. We don't sanctify it. Um, and it means nothing to us. Why do you think all of these mass shootings happen? Why do you think people are gunning down people in the streets of Chicago? It's because society has totally taken life and uh, made it meaningless. That's what it really is. And Taylor Swift is out there and she's promoting this dank lifestyle, this, young woman with her cats in her studio apartment that costs, uh, 1,200 or so dollars with her cat, and she's lonely. And the World Economic Forum, as I was telling you, the smart cities, the 15-minute cities, which Normal has adopted. It's a global initiative pushed by the World Economic Forum. And uh, what that does, it makes these apartments $1,200, $1,300 to rent. They're shoe boxes, and they want you to own nothing, and to be happy. They keep telling you that if you'll own nothing, if you don't have a family, you'll be happy. You'll be happy. You'll be happy. And what you give up all of the spontaneous wrestling with your kids, get the spontaneous dance parties. You give up all of that. You give up the quiet time that just can't even be quantified with your family. They're attacking the American way of life. And Vivek Ramaswamy has actually said I mean, he has said that that is the issue, that they are attacking the American way of life. And I like Vivek. He's not a Christian, which um, worries me. uh, Being that, and I've talked about this before, there is this weird global push for Hinduism to be implemented in classes. Uh, it's happening right here in Normal Unit 5. There was actually, it's called Sri Krishna or something like that. And I'm not Hindu. I have no idea what their religion is. But they're implementing it on a global uh, level, like national. I mean, there's a map where uh, I forget what it's called. It's a Hinduism initiative, and they go to schools around the country, and then they teach children about the deities, and that's what is worrisome to me. Um, we are a Judeo-Christian country. That's just the facts. And that's why we continue to be blessed here in America, because we chose God. Now, Israel continues to survive. They have been constantly attacked by Hamas, the Palestinians, for the beginning of time. They finally became a country again in 1948. The United Nations recognized them as a country, which was prophesied. They all disbanded after the Roman Empire. I think that's 70 AD, destroyed the Jewish people, and they kind of all disbanded. But then it was prophesied emphasized in the Bible that they would band together again, the Jewish people, and they would have a country. Um, that happened in 1948, so that's prophecy that came to pass. And the Jewish people continue to survive because God chose the Jewish people. That's the promised land. He actually promised Abraham and the descendants of Isaac, not Ishmael, the land, the promised land. So we're back now. AOC, oh boy. Oh boy, AOC. She just often proves how stupid she is by saying stupid things. And she just does this so often, and she never disappoints me in that regard. And here's why AOC is wrong again. Just like AOC, many progressives don't live in reality. They just don't live in reality. Subsequently, in states that have replaced sex-based protections with gender ideology, women and girls are losing titles, medals, scholarship opportunities at an alarming rate. Okay, there's states that have replaced sex-based protections. So this is Title IX. Now they've replaced what Title IX, it was supposed to protect women in sports. Okay, it was supposed to make it to where females could have their sports and be protected from, getting their face smashed in by a basketball. Okay, and I've told you the story before where I had a buddy in a basketball. We were playing a game, and it's called bleacher ball, and it was these big yoga balls. Okay, huge yoga balls, and we would throw the ball to the bleachers, and if the ball hit the bleachers and you couldn't defend it from hitting the bleachers, then you scored a point. So I was defending, and I was in gym, and I truly do believe that gym classes, or even gyms, there should be female only gyms and male only gyms. I really do believe that. But they threw the guy threw the ball, I blocked it. It threw me back, and I fell, and I broke my wrist. I broke it in all kinds of areas, and I was in a cast, and I sprained my ankle too falling back, so I was in crutches, and I was also I had my arm casted up, so I was crutching around with a cast on my arm. And that's, I mean, I don't fault the young gentleman. Okay. I don't fault the kid that I went to school with. He was much stronger than I was, and we were playing a game together, and that just shouldn't have happened. It just shouldn't happen. And there are protections in place for females to have their own spaces in sports. But now they're losing titles. They're losing medals. That right here in Illinois, there was a championship. It was a cycling championship, and this woman came in third place, and she was third on the podium, and she came in behind two males. So they're losing scholarship opportunities, they're losing medals, they're losing titles, and AOC, she proved how stupid she was. Once again, she does this a lot, folks, by warning that all women are going to have to face genital examinations if men are banned from competing in female sports. That's ridiculous. So I got to play it for you. You won't, this is going to leave you speechless. You won't even believe that this is a talking point that she laid out there. This is a new Democrat talking point on men being in women's spaces. So let's take a listen to it. Here we go.
I've spent a decent amount of my time here in Congress sitting through panels and hearings of men attempting to restrict the rights of women and telling us that it's for our own good. But I want to dive a little bit more deeply into why this issue with targeting trans women in sports is particularly problematic, not just for trans girls, but for all of us. We're here today because there's a proposal here, and there are several proposals here to further marginalize trans women in sports. And I think about this all the time because trans people in the United States doesn't even exceed 1% of our population. And yet there is so many resources and energy and time dedicated to figuring out how we can more finely exclude them from our sports. And I thought, why so much effort and dedication on such a tiny portion of the US population when there virtually is no major issue that is precipitating? And started to realize that a lot of these proposals here involve invasion of privacy. of all women. Ms. Goss-Graves, can you tell us a little bit about what sex testing looks like for youth in states with trans athletic bans?
It's terrible. In
It
some
doesn't happen.
states, any individual could challenge whether someone is a girl enough to play. In some states, it requires actual genital verification, which is shocking. And it's not as if they're.
And let me just stop you right there. You said there are some proposals. I mean, we've seen this in Ohio. There was a proposed ban on trans athletes that originally allowed for genital examinations on minors in order to quote unquote protect women.
Nope. So let's unpack it here on the buzz. AOC, she's saying stupid things again. She proved how stupid she was by saying all of that. She was warning that all women are going to have to face genital examinations if men are banned from competing in women's sports. And that's just not true. She made the comments here on Tuesday night at the House Oversight Subcommittee on Health, which discussed the topic of gender participation in sports. So the Progressive Squad member, AOC, said multiple proposals would marginalize males who believe to be trans and claimed that questioning an athlete's gender would open up females to genital examinations. Okay, so she also, I didn't play the rest of that clip there, but she did discuss abortion and claimed that abortion laws being proposed in states place women under more surveillance and that there are privacy consequences for all women with these proposals about transgenders, athletes, and abortion. So, blah, blah, blah. This is what she said, quoting her here. And we're saying this is an environment of a post-Dobbs America where states are criminalizing access to abortion and want nothing more than data on women to figure out when, who's getting a menstrual cycle, who doesn't have one, and who's supposed to believe this is going to make us better and safer. What? What are you talking about? So then she goes on, she goes, I think not. And per usual, I don't believe we're sitting here on a panel of men that has actually thought about the biology and privacy consequences of women, trans or cisgendered. This is what she said. Okay, the lack of self-awareness here is infuriating. Is this her way of trying to find a right to abortion in the Constitution? I think that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to say that there's privacy consequences, and she's trying to find the word right to abortion in the Constitution, and this is a roundabout way of getting there. So let me get this straight. AOC not only wants to take away sex-based protections for women, okay, sex-based protections for women, but she wants to get further victimized, or she wants to further victimize women by calling for more abortions. In other words, she thinks that sex-based protections and women's rights and a woman's right to life should be destroyed when the child being aborted is a female. I know AOC tried hard to come up with this one, but it's not true that women rely on the right to abortion to participate equally in society. That's just not true. And I can't believe I even have to say that. Okay, women do not rely on abortion to participate equally in society. We participate equally in society because we participate equally in society. We don't have to rely on abortion to participate equally in society. Disguising the reality of abortion by claiming it's a gender equality is a great example of how progressives twist words to push their agenda. This is a great example of that. Women shouldn't have to compete against men to play in sports. I mean, that's it. Yet the reality we face now as a growing number of failing male athletes who self-identify as a woman are being allowed to enter women's competitions. That's just true. Men who fail in their own sport come over to women's sports because it's easier, because they can beat us. Does AOC not understand that allowing men to compete against women is essentially calling for an end? Does she not understand that allowing women or men to compete against women is essentially calling for the end of women's sports? Like, that's what it is. If you allow men in women's spaces, it's no longer a woman's space. It's a man's space. Creating a right to compete in sports based on gender identity does not add a right. Creating a right to compete in sports based on a gender identity does not add right. It eliminates the right of women and girls to compete against members of their own sex, to compete against members of their own sex. So, I mean, this was a weird roundabout way of trying to say that there's privacy consequences. That's not happening. States are not doing genital examinations. They're totally wrong. You have to provide what's on your birth certificate. Okay. If your birth certificate says that you're male, then you're a male. If your birth certificate says you're a female, then you're a female. Okay. We haven't gotten to that yet, I don't think, here in the United States, where doctors are committing really like a medical atrocity and lying on the birth certificate. But I don't know, maybe that is happening. But all I know is that if whatever it says on your birth certificate, whatever is between your legs, you need to be in that sport, because it's for the safety, really, of the women. All right, I'm going to be back talking a little bit about Joe Biden's staff. They really they want him to call for a ceasefire, but they don't respect this guy at all. I would almost feel bad for Joe Biden if I didn't hate his policies so much, or the policies of the people propping him up like a puppet. But they don't respect him at all, because he got a letter and they're calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, a ceasefire. They don't want Israel to defend themselves. And get this, the letter is signed anonymously. What cowards. I'm back. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We are going to get to the White House interns who demand that Joe Biden call for a ceasefire. This is ridiculous because they actually sent a letter. This poor man, he gets no respect. I would actually feel bad for Joe if his policies weren't such crap and the people who were propping him up crafting these policies, because we know he's not doing anything. People who are propping him up. I would feel bad if they weren't systemically destroying America, this country. I'd be inclined to feel bad for Joe, but I don't. The man gets no respect though, and you have to remember who the people that are, who the people are that control the Democrat Party. And remember, he brought this onto himself. Okay, he brought this onto himself. He surrounded himself around people who put him into power, and now he's got no respect from his interns, which is pretty funny. So I'm right back. This is the Morning Buzz. Smash that like button. Please smash it. If his policies weren't such crap, and if the policies his people who are propping him up weren't destroying America systemically, I'd be inclined to feel bad for Joe Biden. I actually would feel bad for Joe Biden, but I don't, because I remember who the people are that control the Democrat Party, and I remember he brought this onto himself. Joe Biden did, by surrounding himself around people all these years that are fascist authoritarians. Yankees, Cowboys, the deep state, and I want to get to that because Vivek Ramaswamy, I mean, he won that debate last night, and I like Vivek more and more. I've told you guys that I will not vote for Vivek Ramaswamy for the simple reason that I am a Christian conservative in that order, and I'm sorry, Vivek Ramaswamy is Hindu. Not to disparage Hindus in any kind of way. I believe that we should be, as a Christian, putting people of faith, putting people of a Christian faith into office, especially given what's going on in Hamas or in Israel with Hamas. We should definitely be putting a Christian in office. But Vivek Ramaswamy, he went after Chris Christie. He absolutely shut down Chris Christie when he tried to barge in and interrupt what Vivek Ramaswamy was saying about how he was a neocon and how they can't even name 3 provinces in Ukraine that they want to help out, but yet they're willing to send out our sons and daughters to go fight in this war. We've sent $200 billion to Ukraine. For context, and I bring this up all of the time for context, with $200 billion, we could give every family in Maui, the Maui wildfires destroyed that entire island. Conveniently, not like Whoopi Goldberg's or who is it? I think it was Oprah Winfrey, not her mansion, or any of the actors or actresses or the celebrities' mansions there. But and it was truly the fault of the government. That's why those Maui fall. Now, whether it is done on purpose or out of ignorance, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because it wouldn't have happened had not the government failed the people of Maui anyway. So the $200 billion that we've sent over to Ukraine, what could we have done with that $200 billion? I'll tell you. We could have given Maui families $50 million each family, $50 million each. We could give every homeless veteran here $2 billion, or $2 billion. Yes, $2 billion. And there's just so much we could have done with that money. Instead, we sent it to a country that is not a democracy, by the way. They are not a democracy. They don't even hold elections. They canceled their elections. Zelensky is out there and he's ruling it as some sort of authoritarian dictator. And they're also persecuting Armenian Christians. Their ambassador is a self-proclaimed witch. She's a satanic. She worships the satanic. Like, actually, she invited, and this was on a WikiLeaks email, folks. She invited the Podesta brothers, who also served at behest of the Hillary Clinton campaign back in 2016. She invited them to a spirit cooking. Like, come on. Ukraine is it's not a moral country. It's not even a NATO country. We have no obligation to Ukraine. Vivek pointed that out, and he said that Nikki Haley and Chris Christie couldn't even name 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine. She couldn't do it. Game over for both of them. They're neocons. And Ron DeSantis, he just sat there. I mean, he did some sort of awkward thing with his hands the whole time. Like, he didn't put them on the desk or like the podium. He didn't put them like in his pockets. He didn't fold them. I mean, he sat there awkwardly with his hands, not even like at his sides, but like hovering over his thighs. Poor guy. I mean, he just looks so uncomfortable up there. And Vivek Ramaswamy has this amazing ability. He possesses this ability to make people feel uncomfortable by simply telling the truth. He laid out all kinds of truth nukes. I call them truth nukes. And he said J6 was an inside job. Yes, we've gone through that here on the Morning Buzz. I've told you about things that the police did to people, did to women, the police brutality that went on, the lies that they told you about January 6th. Brian Sicknick, the Capitol Police officer who did not get bludgeoned to death by J6ers. He died of a stroke much later. He said that the government lied about 9/11. The only thing that Vivek Ramaswamy was missing there in his truth nukes was that John F. Kennedy, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, was the Central Intelligence Agencies and Lyndon Baines Johnson. They coordinated together and they killed him because he was a nationalist populist president and he couldn't be tricked into going into war with Russia. So they had to kill him. They had to assassinate him. And that was the last time. That is when we lost our country, folks. We just came up, I think, on the, what was it, the 50th, 60th? Maybe it was the 60th anniversary of JFK's death. It was back in November. And I did an entire special on that. And I went through how the CIA actually lied about the Bay of Pigs. They lied to John F. Kennedy all of the time, his intelligence agencies, to try to get him to go into war with Russia. And he just wouldn't do it. And that's why they assassinated him, because they didn't want the people choosing a nationalist populist president who would not provoke us into all kinds of wars or get us into all kinds of wars. And why do they want us into wars? Because they line their pockets with special interests. And yeah, okay, I went off a tangent. You guys want to hear about the White House and the interns, how they demanded Joe Biden call for a ceasefire. They did this in a letter, which is kind of amazing because the letter was signed anonymously, of course. So, like I said, if it weren't for the fact that his policies suck and that the people propping him up like some sort of puppet, looks like Pinocchio, he's got strings, those people crafting those policies, if those policies weren't systemically destroying America and destroying this country, I would actually feel bad for Joe Biden because this guy gets no respect. He gets no respect from Jill Biden, who walks around in what looks like curtains or drapes. He gets no respect from her. He gets no respect from even his damn dogs. He didn't even get respect from the dogs. The dogs are biting him. He gets no respect. I'd feel bad for him because his life is just so sad. I mean, he gets no respect. And then look at these interns. So the White House interns have this letter demanding Joe Biden call for a ceasefire in Israel with the Israel-Hamas war. They don't want Israel to defend themselves against the rabid, evil Hamas. Hamas is actually found in the Bible. It actually means lawlessness in Hebrew. And here we have this Israel-Hamas war. The interns are demanding that Joe Biden call for a ceasefire. They don't want Israel to defend themselves. And not unlike the congressional staffers who are too afraid to let the world know how pro-Hamas and anti basic understanding of history they are. Really, the basic understanding of history, just open up the word. Open up the word, honestly, and it'll show you that Abraham and the descendants of Isaacs, they were promised Israel. Okay, they were promised much of Israel. I think it goes from the Euphrates River to the Nile or something like that. You'd have to read it, and I forget it, but it includes a lot of these countries like Syria, Iraq, Iran. It includes a lot of that. So that should be promised to the Jewish people. And who promised it? It was God, the Almighty. Okay, and he did promise the descendants of Ishmael other nations, but they did not get Israel. Ishmael, that is the Arab nations. Those are that's Muslim. That's that religion that was bred from those descendants. It came from those descendants. The Muhammad came from there, and on the other side, the descendants of Isaac, the tribe of Judah. We've got Jesus, Christianity coming from that side. Okay, so it's just a big old family feud, and they don't understand basic history here because they've never opened up their dang Bibles. And anyway, so these interns are not different from the congressional staffers because these congressional staffers, They are so pro Hamas, but they're they don't even have a basic understanding of what the history is here. They have no understanding of it. And these people who only have jobs because they go to school in DC, by the way, and their father knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy, these interns, they're now demanding that the president of the United States bend the knee to their opinion. I've got the letter here. I'm going to go through it in the 8 o'clock hour. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. I'm Kat Peterson, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe today. Yeah, Biden's a bad dog. Facts. Yeah. So poor Joe Biden. He didn't even get respect from his dog or Jill. He didn't get respect from Hunter. He didn't get respect from anybody. I would feel bad for him, but then I think about the policies, then I think about the people he's in bed with, and I'm like, this is pretty much like par for the course. But um that was very uncomfortable. I felt sorry for Nikki Haley. Yeah. And then you begin to feel sorry for these people and then you're like, "Oh yeah, that's right. She sits on the board for Boeing and she actually is so totally for killing people so that way she can get rich. She's for sending my daughter, my son over to Ukraine so that way she can line her pockets because she sits on the board for Boeing or some sort of military industrial complex." See, there's four parties, folks. There's the Yankees and the Cowboys. Now, I've talked about this a lot. The Yankees are the Democrats who are beholden to the special interests, the big banks. Okay. They're the finance type guys, the big banks. And then you look at the Cowboys, and they are this military industrial complex. They're big oil, Texas oil. So those are the Cowboys and the Yankees. And then you've got these two other sides. You've got kind of like the socialist wing, the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democrat Party. And they think that the only way to dismantle the deep state is to rearrange everything and take apart everything, including our Constitution, which just isn't true. They don't realize that their end goal is what is happening. Okay, their end goal, what they want for the country, is what is happening right now, and um, they see that there is a deep state issue, but they have a weird way of trying to dismantle the deep state. But what the deep state is doing is actually what they're calling for. So, yeah, if they truly were against the deep state, they would be anti everything that the deep state wants, and that's these global initiatives, that's the multifamily housing, that's the you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. Uh, and you would think that the Bernie Sanders camp, I don't know what else to call them, just these left wing, I'll call them left wing, these left wing Democrats, that's what they believe is going to dismantle the deep state, is if we turn into some sort of communist country. And if we get rid of the Constitution, it'll turn out all right. That's not true. We've gone away from the Constitution. And then you've got the right wing conservatives. That's us, the right wing of the Republican Party. And we believe that the establishment, we don't want the establishment anymore. We want a nationalist, populist president. We don't want to get into any wars. But we do believe that our Constitution is sound. A republic is sound. And the answer is not communism, but rather just going back to the Constitution and honestly, the Bible, reading the Bible. Okay. That's what it is. So we are going to be back in just a little bit. Hang out for about 30 seconds. Smash the like button. reading some of your comments this morning. It's just bringing a smile to my face. I love it. Jennifer, she says, that was very uncomfortable. I feel bad for Nikki Haley. Yes, Vivek Ramaswamy totally destroyed her in that he asked her, hey, can you name me 3 provinces that need help in Ukraine? And she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. Her political career is over. Boom, game over. When we come back in the 8 o'clock hour, like I said, I want to read this letter to you because it's kind of embarrassing that we've got Joe Biden, his interns, the White House interns, have a letter demanding Joe Biden call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. This guy gets no respect. He gets no respect from his son. He gets no respect from his dogs, his wife, his kids, and none. He gets no respect. I'd almost feel bad for him if his policies weren't systemically destroying the country. But we're going to read a bit of this letter because I think it's funny that these people who only have jobs really at the White House, they only have this internship because daddy knew daddy, or daddy knew a guy, knew a guy, knew a guy. And now these people are demanding the president of the United States bend the knee to their opinion. So I'm back next. Thanks for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead and smash the like button. We are going to be talking a little bit about Joe Biden and the letter that his interns wrote, calling for a ceasefire. But before I do that, I do want to talk about this. This is an interesting thing happening in Bloomington, and it doesn't shock me really. Nothing shocks me anymore, but this is an actual drag queen story time with Celexa and Axelrod share alike. I don't know what that is. But they are going to be hosted at Bob's Bay Books in downtown Bloomington this Saturday, December 9th at 3 o'clock. It's kind of disturbing. So viewer discretion is advised. I will be showing you guys the pictures here. Here we go. This is where they actually admit that this is not a drag show. It's a story time for kiddos. This is geared towards preschool and kindergarten age children. We encourage all to join. This is a picture of the drag queen that will be in attendance. He publicly posted this on his social media. He's obviously being hung with a noose there, and blood is coming from his eyes. These drag queens are typically graphic when it comes to violence. In fact, the Satanic Temple said that they do, a lot of drag queens do subscribe to a Satanist type of religion. Don't believe me, just go check out a tweet of theirs. The Satanic Temple, their official Twitter account said that yes, drag queens do tend to subscribe or they tend to follow the satanic religion. And that's not me saying it, that's the Satanic Temple saying it. So I'm back just a little bit. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I just want to thank you for tuning in every morning. We're doing it 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday. It's a 3-hour morning show, and you guys can go ahead subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. A couple of housekeeping things I wanted to hit today. Santa calls. It's back. Now I made a lot of cookies last night. I had to make some cookies for a benefit. And I made the cookies for the benefit, and they were these really good. I've never made oatmeal cookies before, but I made oatmeal butterscotch cookies, and they turned out pretty awesome. So Cities 92.9 and Tax Accounting Plus are bringing you the magic of Christmas to Bloomington Normal. We're bringing the magic of Christmas to Bloomington Normal because guess what? Santa comes in studio, and I've got the cookies ready to go for him. I made some extra just for St. Nick himself because he's going to be coming into studio making calls to some children in the Bloomington Normal Central Illinois area. All you have to do to receive a call, for your kid to receive a call, is just go to cities929.com, register for that call. You get a call with Santa, and Santa will be making some phone calls here Monday and Wednesday every week leading up to Christmas from 5 to 6 p.m. Big thank you to Tax and Accounting Plus, bringing the magic of Christmas right here to Bloomington Normal. Okay. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Joe Biden. He doesn't get any kind of respect, especially not from his interns. And it sucks because you know that these kids wouldn't be interns had not their dad called up a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy. And that's how they're in this school. They're in a school in Washington, D.C., and now they're interning for the White House. But in the letter, this is how it goes. We, the undersigned fall 2023 White House and Executive Office of the President interns will no longer remain silent on the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. Excuse me? So now these interns are demanding the President of the United States bend the knee to their opinion. That's the president of he gets no respect. He gets no respect from his dog, his wife, who runs around wearing like what can only be explained as curtains or drapes. I don't know. Who's doing the fashion for Jill? Who's in charge of her wardrobe? Because it is abysmal. But Jill doesn't respect him. Hunter doesn't respect him clearly because Hunter is going into the White House and staking in cocaine and doing blow and I mean, just look at the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay. I don't need to tell you that Hunter Biden doesn't respect dad or mom. He's the definition of a prodigal son. Somebody who has gone way, way, way off the tracks. But he doesn't respect Joe. Hunter doesn't. Jill doesn't. Even his dogs, his German shepherds, turn around and bite him. The dogs don't even give him the respect. But he's not a man worthy of respect. You have to remember, this is Joe Biden. His policies are destroying America. Okay, let's continue with the letter, shall we? We need the voices of the American people, and we heed the voices of the American people, and call on the administration to demand a permanent ceasefire. Wow. It's so funny because these interns, much like, honestly, Congress critters like AOC and like, I don't think they understand the basic history here, but they said, we are not the decision makers of today, but we aspire to be the leaders of tomorrow. Aw. And we will not forget how the pleas of the American people have been heard and thus far ignored. Okay. Um, so the interns are threatening the president of the United States that they will never forget. Uh, they'll never forget how the pleas of the American people have been heard and thus far ignored. That line alone should have them all fired. If I was the president of the United States and I had a bunch of nobody interns sending me a letter, mind you, they signed anonymously. They didn't even put their names on it. I'd be like, "Nah, fire them all. Do it." You think Donald Trump would do that? We know that Donald Trump would do that. I'd require now this would require, of course, if Joe Biden were to fire them all, this would require Jill Biden to let Joe have his testicles for more than an hour, but there's another logical fallacy. That is a reoccurring theme in these open letters from progressives. You and every other anti-Semitic Democrat, living on top of each other in these crime-ridden urban areas does not equal the American people. Okay, the American people, the Democrats, these interns, they're living on top of each other in these crime-ridden urban areas where you have to call an attendant to come give you a deodorant stick. Like, that's what Washington, D.C. is going through right now. The CVS is in Washington, D.C. You have to call an attendant over to unlock the case there to grab your deodorant stick to purchase it because theft is out of control. You only represent the losers of America. Okay? You're a loser. Okay? If you live in a Democrat city, if you live in a crime urban area and you're living on top of each other and you live in this $1,200, $5,000 a month apartment, it's a shoebox and you got one cat, you're a loser. Okay? And you only represent the loser. The American people, we actually support Israel's right to defend themselves. We are Zionists. That's what a Zionist is. And the right to ensure an attack like October 7th never happens again. Okay, scarier than the complete ignorance of the history and the world around them is that, left unchecked, these people will grow up and be the policymakers. Okay, that's the concerning part here, is that these interns, if they're not fired and if they're not told, "Hey, you're a loser," by our president, by the commander in chief, then they're going to be left unchecked and they're going to grow up, they're going to become policymakers, and we're going to have Nikki Haley's and Chris Christie's who can't even name 3 provinces in Ukraine, but yet they want to go send our sons and daughters over there to go die. It's bad enough they've got jobs, let alone uh, will probably bully their way into an Oval Office meeting. This is just they lack the basic understanding, the history. Now, I'm not going to get into all of the nuts and bolts of it, but I really recommend the Victorious Life podcast. That's on cities929.com. This is how this was an eye-opener, and it's kind of hard because this isn't taught in public school. It's not taught, and nobody tells you about the Bible and what it says and what actually is the truth about what's going on in Hamas or in Israel with Hamas. The Arab nations, they came from a man. His name is Ishmael. He's the son of Abraham. Abraham was promised, his descendants were promised land, the promised land, Israel. But Ishmael is not the son in which Israel was promised. Now, the son gets other nations. Okay, Ishmael gets other nations. Now, what happened? Abraham, he slept with a servant girl of Sarah's, his wife, because they weren't able to have a child. And here's God saying, hey, you're going to have a child, and this child, this descendant of yours, is going to be promised this land, Israel. And they were struggling because they were old and they couldn't have a baby. And then they tried to speed up really God's plan. And then they had this servant girl sleep with Abraham. And then they had Ishmael. Ishmael is not the promised, he's not the son who's promised the promised land. So now you've got this big divide. It's a family feud, as Pastor Tim will say. It's a family feud. Now you've got the Arab nations, and you have on this side Isaac and the descendants of Isaac. You've got the Jewish people, and then of that, you have the tribe of Judah, where Jesus was born, and then Christianity and so on. And then over here, you've got Ishmael, and then you've got Muhammad, and then you've got the Islamic faith. That's what this is. It's a family feud of who was promised the land. And if you read the Bible, you'll find out that the land was actually promised to Isaac. Plenty of examples. So anyway, they lack a basic understanding of history, and when they're left unchecked, when the left is unchecked, they are going to grow up to be the policymakers. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about DINKs. I talked a little bit about this in the 7 o'clock hour. DINKs, this is a weird thing that's been going on. It's a viral trend, and it's all the latest viral rage. It stands for dual income, no kids. And I promise you that all of those, I could bet that all of those White House interns are DINKs. So this stands for dual income, no kids. I would like to call them sad losers, but to each their own, I guess. These are couples, presumably married, who brag about how awesome their lives are without children in their lives. And this is actually really sad. Now, look, I don't have an issue with people deciding that kids aren't for them. Quite frankly, there's plenty of people out there who shouldn't have kids, but they decide to have kids. And I'm not saying that if you shouldn't have kids or if then you can just kill the kids. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is there's plenty of people out there who shouldn't have had kids, but they did. However, when you're marketing yourself out there as a DINK and you're using this acronym for the sake of social media content, you enter into an arena where it's fair play to point out what an absolute loser you look like. So that's what I'm going to do here on the morning bus. So there's this couple, and I'm watching this video. I've watched a lot of these because it's like viral. And China must really want me to be a DINK. China really wants your kid to be a DINK. So DINK lifestyle, you wake up on a Saturday morning and I'm watching the video. It's this couple and they drink some coffee. They go grocery shopping. They decorate their Christmas tree. And they pretty much do everything that the family does, minus going with the kids, going to do all of these things with the kids. Usually grocery shop with kids. You decorate the tree with the kids. You can even go to the coffee shop with the kids. Most of the time, your day ends maybe at a basketball game and enjoying your kids and watching them discover who they are, what their hobbies are, what their interests are, watching your kids discover themselves and laugh with their friends. Okay. So DINKs, they don't have any of that. And another major difference is that, yeah, the family usually, and my dad, my mom, they had the can of Folgers. The can of Folgers would come out every morning and they'd do, my dad was pretty heavy with the scoops. He'd do about 4 or 5 scoops for a pot of coffee, right? So usually you make the coffee at home if you have a family because you can't afford paying $8 for one at Starbucks or something. So, and look, basketball costs money. The kids need soccer cleats. I get that. And they want to make you feel bad for spending your money on your kids and not yourself. These are selfish people. They're losers. And here's a clip. This is a couple, and they explain what DINKs are. And your kids are watching this. I mean, if you're not aware of this, they're watching it on TikTok. They're watching Taylor Swift call for, your young girls, call for your daughters to not have grandchildren, to be a DINK, and that they don't need a man. After about 12, and I think she's had 12 public relationships, Taylor Swift. She's had 12 of them. Okay, that we know of. Now we don't even know the ones that were private, but of these relationships, at some point we have to say, well, I think Taylor Swift it might be to blame here. How do you run through 12 different people? All right, so here we go. Let's take a listen.
We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're dinks. We can go to Florida on a whim.
We're dinks. We're already planning our European vacation next year.
Dinks. We get a full 8 hours of sleep and sometimes more.
We're dinks. We get desserts and appetizers at restaurants.
We're dinks. We can play with other kids and give them back.
We're dinks. We still do it 3 times a week.
We're dinks. We spend our discretionary income on $8 lattes.
We're dinks. We max out our 401ks, Roth IRAs, and HSAs.
We're dinks. We don't use our kids or dog as an excuse to leave a party. We just leave. We're dinks. We go.
And you can see it in their faces how really sad they are. But some of what they say is true, and I want to make that clear. Some of what they say is true. Parents don't have the discretionary income to go jet off to Europe on a whim, but in exchange, what you do get is the spontaneous dance parties that you have in the living room, the wrestling around with dad, the giggling, the father-daughter dances, the mother-son events, the Little League, the Nerf wars. I mean, I couldn't imagine my life without my brother. I mean, family is so important. I don't think I need to tell you that, but we would go and we'd play with Nerf guns. We'd go and we'd hit trees with sticks. And what is really screwed up about this is that these dinks, you are a kid too. Okay, so you hate kids that much to where you don't want you don't want to have them. You're telling other people that they shouldn't have them. And, it's just unquantifiable, the quiet time that you get to spend with your family. I mean, sitting around the dinner table or sitting in the living room and just being quiet. I mean, that's an experience. And dinks, what's even more messed up is they are so immoral. Here's the thing. They deliberately don't have kids. And they deliberately tell you not to have kids, and they're effectively demanding that other people's kids take care of them in their old age. That's messed up. And more importantly, and I think the most important part of all of this is that this viral content is stupid. I'm back. Next, I do want to talk a little bit about these university presidents, Harvard, these elite university presidents. They actually refuse to denounce the calling for genocide, these students calling for Jewish genocide on campus. Their response is going to leave you speechless. I'm back. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead, smash that like button, and we're going to be coming back talking a little bit about the elite university presidents, and what they had to say about students calling for the actual genocide of Jewish people. And then we will be back chatting a little bit about Vivek Ramaswamy because he completely just destroyed Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, I mean, he just sat there the whole time with his hands at his side, but like not at his side, and they kind of like hovered over by his thighs, which I don't know who stands like that. Like, who does that? I'm back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Justin, there's a drag queen story hour, and it's geared toward pre-K and kindergarten students. It's happening here in Bloomington. It's happening in a city near you. I've told you this several times. This happens all of the time. So it's not really news to me, but this is an interesting description. Bob's Bay Books, they're fostering a welcome and inclusive environment. Everyone is encouraged to attend as long as they're respectful. So Axel, Rod, and Celexa are the drag queens that are going to be reading a selection of picture books geared towards preschool and kindergarten age children. And this is happening 3 o'clock on a Saturday, and it's happening at Bob's Bay Books. It's just disturbing. It's very disturbing. And especially when you look at the drag queens that are going to be there that day. If you go look at their social medias, particularly one, Axel Rod, when I go and I look at his Instagram, I'm deeply concerned that this man is going to be around children. I'll just tell you right now what his Instagram post actually says. He's got a lollipop and it's in between his legs, in between his legs, and he's got this big lollipop, and he says, "Lick my lollipop?" Question mark. Yeah. So that's just some of what is featured on these drag performers' pages on their social media. This is a public account, and I'm just telling you who these people are. There's another account, the Celexa account. This is the drag queen that will be reading to your children. Actually, he puts out this photo. A lot of them are graphic, violent, like violently graphic. There's one photo, we've got it on our social media, of this drag queen who's going to be there reading to children. He's got a noose around his neck, and it's like hanging him, and then there's blood like dripping from his eyes. And I get that, art is art, but like for kids, come on, don't ask yourself, this whole uh this whole thing where, a lot of people are like, well, why isn't drag queen story out? Like, people ask why the children shouldn't see drag queens. Why is it the children shouldn't see drag queens? Well, just take a visit to their social media, and then if you still say that kids should be exposed to people who participate in this sort of so-called art form, you're a messed up individual. What we really need to be asking is, why do drag queens crave an audience of children? Why do they want to perform in front of children? We need to be asking that question. All right, I do want to shift gears. I want to lighten it up a little bit here on the buzz. I love to do that. This crane operator actually saved a man's life. So, Glenn Edwards, he's a crane operator out of England. And he found himself at the exact right place at the exact right time. So he was near his crane when a fire alarm sounded, and he saw a man stuck in a building waving his coat. It was smoky, it was windy, and Glenn, the crane operator, knew the area and trusted his skills. So he attached a metal cage to the crane, and he worked to help get the man out of this building. He helped the man escape from this burning building with the help of a coworker, and helping him with some advice of how to get this crane inside of the burning building, the cage. Uh, and this worried crowd was watching as these two tried to figure out how to get this guy out of the burning building. Glenn moved the crane to rescue the man, and it all kind of worked out. And the man was able to get into the metal cage, and the onlookers on the ground erupted in cheers and applause. The crowd was going wild. It was a rescue mission completed, and Glenn admitted it was no walk in the park. It's hard. I would imagine. I don't know. I've never operated a crane, but it seemed like an eternity until the man got inside the cage. The adrenaline was out of the roof once I saw him get inside the cage, and we got him out of there. The man rescued was taken to the hospital for mild smoke inhalation, and he was discharged that same day. So, a nice news story. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, like I promised that we were going to get to this, the elite university presidents, they were refusing to denounce the students calling for Jewish genocide on campuses. Their responses to a very easy question are going to leave you speechless. That's next. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are going to be back chatting a little bit about these university presidents and what they said was totally despicable. But we will be back chatting a little bit about that. And another thing I wanted to hit was Vivek Ramaswamy. He just completely obliterated both Chris Christie and Nikki Haley up there and Ron DeSantis. He really didn't need to be obliterated by Vivek because he sat there all awkwardly and weird. And I've got more on that here in just a minute. But also, the government should not have the power to redefine what a man is and what a woman is. Yet here we are, uh, and we find these progressive idiots destroying women's sports. And this was incredible. We have the National Women's Law Center president saying that female athletes should learn to lose gracefully against male athletes. Here we go. Fatima Graves, she's the head of the National Women's Law Center, and she can't define what a woman is. And she says that women actually need to learn to lose gracefully. Yes, she actually said this, folks. She says that women need to lose gracefully against biological men. This is deeply disturbing and it's so anti woman, but let's take a listen to it. Here we go.
And success in school sports depends on a whole range of factors, including how hard you work and coaching and access to really good resources and facilities. And trans students participate in sports for the same reason as their kids, because it is fun, because it creates belonging and community, because it teaches so much about persistence and leadership and discipline, unless they learn to lose gracefully, hopefully. And often they learn to win with dignity, hopefully. They learn to do the sort of work that means you have higher grades and stay connected to school. I want every kid to have that chance, to have the chance to play. So I feel compelled to just end my testimony with a few ideas for the committee to pursue if it really wants to work on this issue. We could make it safer for student athletes who report harassment and sexual misconduct. We could address resource
Wow. I honestly, these people are so, like, how do you function, like, in daily life? For the vast majority of human history, we didn't need a scientist to define what a woman is. She still is not defining what a woman is. This National Women's Center president, her name is Graves, Fatima Graves, and she sat there and she said that women need to learn to lose gracefully against trans athletes, against men. Title IX, the whole purpose of it is to protect women's spaces. Okay, and I gave you guys the story, the bleacher ball. It was a game that we played in gym class, and I believe that gyms should be separate. Even gyms that you go to in your adult life, I think that we need to have separate gyms. Men need to have their space, women need to have their spaces. And in gym class, we had this game. It was called bleacher ball, and it was a big yoga ball. And you had to throw the yoga ball against the bleachers. And if you could throw the yoga ball and hit the bleachers, then you get a point. And there's like a line of defense trying to slap away the yoga ball from hitting the bleachers. So I was playing, and there was a guy that I went to school with. It was like 6th, 7th grade or something like that. He's, going through puberty, and he takes the ball and he whips it at the bleachers. And I mean, my skinny little arms and me being a little girl, there's no way that I was no match for the ball. And the ball hits me. I fall to the ground. I fall so hard to the ground that I broke my wrist and sprained my ankle at the same time. So all of 7th grade or whatever grade it was, and I remember it very, very vividly because I was in a school play. I had a cast on in my school play that I was in, and I got my cast the color of the dress that I was supposed to wear for my musical number. I was a big theater kid. I liked music and was in the plays growing up, and I had a blue cast on. And then I also was crutching around with the blue cast on. It was the hardest thing I think I've ever had to really do in my lifetime, was crutch around with a cast on. crutches are hard enough. Then you add a cast on, it's pretty tough. So I broke my wrist, sprained my ankle, and I mean, like, what do you mean lose gracefully? Now I did. I accepted the fact that he was a biological man, and I was no match for that ball. And they shortly after, I don't know if they brought it back or what, but shortly after that happened, the school did the right thing and they said no more bleacher ball. Now I think the school should have taken it a step further and said no more boys and girls in the same gym class. So in high school, I remembered this, and I went into high school and I said, you know what, I'm not going to participate. And we actually it was like a personal fitness class, and I don't think it was explicitly for women, but there were no men. There were no like young boys in this personal fitness class that I took because I had to take it to meet my requirements to graduate. And I decided to go for that class because I said, I really don't enjoy the whole wearing a cast thing. And I really don't enjoy having my parents cart me to the emergency room to go get a cast on. So I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to sign up for the personal fitness class, knowing that all the women participate. I don't know I can't remember if it was explicitly for women, but yeah, that should be a thing. In high school, you shouldn't have to participate in gym class with boys. It's just not fair. And I think that young boys would actually benefit too, because then you actually have real competition. You actually have real competition, and it's more fun that way. So anyway, I do want to talk about this morning. Elite university presidents, they're refusing to denounce students calling for the genocide of Jewish people. Now, I want to point your attention to 2019 Harvard. 2019 Harvard, what they did, they withdrew Kyle Kashuv. Look up Kyle Kashuv. He was accepted into the University of Harvard, and then after his acceptance, they took away his acceptance because they dug up these old text messages where he said the N-word in these texts. He was a preteen when he said the N-word in these text messages with a group chat or with like a bunch of friends. And they were preteens. And then they rescinded his acceptance. Okay. Whatever your thoughts are about that, look, he was a preteen, and Harvard did that. They upheld their code of conduct. They said that, hey, these text messages, they're offensive, and we are going to can you, and we're no longer going to allow you to stay at school here. That's what they did in 2019. 2021, MIT, they actually dismissed this pastor who literally just said something factual about George Floyd, how he pointed a gun at a woman who was pregnant. That's true. It's all there in the police report. And MIT dismissed a pastor in 2021. In 2021, Penn actually threatened students if they spoke out about Will Thomas, and if these female students did not want to compete against a man, Will Thomas, who later became Leah Thomas, the swimmer, they would be canceled. They would no longer attend Penn University. So all of these schools, they have code of conducts where they control speech if that speech is actually being used against certain groups of people. And by people, I mean the top 10 of the left's most marginalized rankings: Black, lesbian, gay, Asians don't make the list. Other ethnicities don't really make the list. Jews definitely don't make the list. So, okay. Another thing that all of these schools have in common, along with many other universities, including Illinois State University, progressive cities in America, there is rampant anti-Semitism going on. That's clear at Illinois State University. There were pictures of children or of these college students, and they had "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That is an anti-Semitic slogan, slur, whatever, and it has no place in our campuses, on our campuses, but it's going on. So since the attack on October 7th, there has been rampant anti-Semitism going on at these universities, and the presidents of these universities actually were called before Congress, this congressional hearing, to address that rampant anti-Semitism, and they were asked a very simple question: does calling for the genocide of Jews violate your university's code of conduct? Well, I've got the clip here. I've got the clip, and this this response is going to leave you speechless. I promise. And let's take a listen to it, because I can't even describe how speechless I really am about it. Hold on, let me pull this up. Here we go.
Making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does
I have-
not constitute bullying and harassment,
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
but you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules.
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yeah.
Wow. So basically what Penn, Harvard, all of these elite university presidents, what they're saying is that, hey, the schools are only going to take action if the speech leads to conduct. So that, say at Harvard, you call for the genocide of Jews, as long as you don't actually physically harm someone, you can say Jews need to be genocide, but genociding them yourselves, whew, that's a bridge too far. That's what these elite university presidents are saying, and it's disturbing. I'm back. I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz on Cities 92.9. So actually, I think there's some science out there that we can kind of look to in this case. At what age do boys and girls not play together at all? T-ball, little league. Me personally, I think that girls and boys should be separate. We should have girls leagues and boys leagues when it comes to T-ball and little league. That's me personally. It should be from birth. If you guys do sports, let's separate them out because it can kind of be traumatic if you've been growing up with the kid and he's a boy and you've been playing t-ball together. It can kind of and you've built up that friendship, and then all of a sudden this switch changes. There's a switch and you have to play with only females, and it can kind of mess up a kid, right? So if you've built up a relationship with boys, and it kind of I think that if we were to separate boys and girls from the get-go, no co-op, nothing like that, I think it would be good. Now, one could probably make the argument prior to puberty. So the average age for puberty, which is when men start to have this testosterone. So when men start to get puberty or get go through puberty, um, that's between the ages of 9 and 14, typically. So let's err on the side of safety. When females start to go through puberty, they go through puberty a little earlier. That's 8. So 9, 8, somewhere around there, maybe like first grade. That would probably be acceptable. There's science that we have that proves that men go through puberty at the ages of 9 to 14, typically. Um, let's err on the side of safety. Let's go for when women go through puberty. That's typically, anywhere from 8 to 13 years old. And everybody's a little bit different. They all go through puberty at different points in time. And I think we should all err on the side of safety, though, and just separate them out. What's the harm in that, right? um, Females get to, and there is a big problem, and I'll tell you this, Dan, I think there's a big problem with females gaining female friends. I know that a lot of my friends, they struggle with maintaining friendships who aren't men. Men typically, you're introduced to men or boys at a young age, like t-ball and things like that, and you develop these um, friendships with men, but then you have a hard time developing friendships with women. Um, like women have a hard time developing friendships with women. Men have a hard time developing friendships with men when you commingle them together at such an early age in a physical activity like t-ball and things like that. So there's a deep bond that you form with the team, and it's hard to make friends outside of those shared spaces, I think. So that's why you get these very mean girls when you get to high school to middle school. I don't think we would nearly see the amount of bullying that happens from men and boys, or boys and girls, if we were to have them both separated um, from the get. But yeah, I don't know. Asinine, stupendous, insane. She is part of the Uniparty zombie cult. Yes. Um, we are going to be back. I'm going to take a brief break, but we'll be right back. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, 8:56 a.m. Another show in the books. You can find all of the podcasts on cities929.com if you missed anything today. Now, one thing that you're going to be hearing about all day is how Vivek Ramaswamy completely destroyed all three of those candidates up there: Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis. And he blasted them for turning on Trump after they used him for money. And then he threw out all of these truth nukes. That's what I call them, truth nukes. J6 was an inside job. 2020, election stolen. The government lied about 9/11. One thing Vivek didn't say was that the government lied about the John F. Kennedy assassination. Then he also he talked about the Great Replacement. It's not a conspiracy theory. And Vivek Ramaswamy actually made a fat joke to Chris Christie's face. Ouch. But my favorite part was when he challenged Nikki Haley and Chris Christie uh, to name three provinces in eastern Ukraine, and they both couldn't do it. And their political career is over. They claim to be these foreign policy experts, but they can't even name a few provinces in eastern Ukraine. But yet they want to send your sons and daughters over there. And that was the moment Vivek destroyed their political careers. He has this ability to make people uncomfortable by simply telling the truth, and I love it, and I'm here for it. You guys have a great rest of your day. We're back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a daily show. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Cat Peterson 929. Bye-bye. Love you.